Yogis, welcome back to another episode of RunYogi Diaries. This is your host, Santosh Shiva. I hope you had a wonderful week and you also got some time to play, swim, bike, run, whatever is your thing. Every week, I bring you conversations with people who are on a journey of well being and endurance. I hope they spark some possibility in you, leave you with some tips, and perhaps some inspiration to perspire. If you like this channel, consider subscribing to it, hit like if you like this video, and leave your comments below and let us know what you think. This episode is also available on all major podcast platforms if audio is your thing. In the house today is Colin Turner, a runner who discovered his passion for running after a hiatus of many years and figured he had to reinvent his approach to sustain it. He also then took that learning into his coaching journey where he helps others become better runners. We get behind the scenes and dig into some key concepts such as cadence and power as a way to improve running performance. Let's dig in. Hey Colin, welcome to Run Yogi Diaries.
Thank you for having me, Santosh. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And we got to kind of meet each other virtually on LinkedIn, and we found that we have a lot of common interests. Your mission on in the area of fitness and running is very similar to what my mission is through this podcast, and I found what you do through your coaching fascinating. Your personal values about running very resonated with me. So I thought, hey, this is a great conversation to have. So before we jump into the hows and the weeds of your journey, maybe can I request you to make a quick personal introduction and then we'll jump in.
Sure. My name is Colin Turner, and professionally, I'm an educator. Actually, I've been a certified teacher and educator for 12 years, and I live in Boston with my wife and two young kids. They're 6 and 8, and live in the city of Boston in Jamaica Plain. And I've been a runner since high school.
Great. So, hey, I think we'd love to get into background of your own personal running in terms of how it started, your own view on fitness, and maybe we should jump in and do a bit of a flashback. How did it all get started for you?
Sure. Well, when I was in middle school, I tried out a couple of different sports. I was in soccer. I played a little bit of basketball in, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And then in high school, I wanted to be a soccer player. I loved soccer. I wanted to play, but I decided to try track to get faster for soccer. So I went out for the track team in the off season, and I just fell in love with the atmosphere. It was a completely different culture on the track team where instead of the freshmen getting hazed like they did on the soccer team, where the freshmen had to carry all the bags and, let the freshmen get it. And there was all kinds of negativity and bullying of the freshmen. On the track team, it was the opposite. Oh, no, he's a freshman. Help him. Oh, he's a freshman. Show him our routine. Show him.
Wow.
You would go next to him. The senior would come next to me and show me the warm-up that everybody did. So we always did the same warm-up every time. And it was like being welcomed and finding a community that I belonged in. So that fall, I went into cross country instead of soccer and loved that too. I started out pretty slow, and the coach said, he looked at my body and my frame. I'm now 6'2" and, thin. He said, you're a mid-distance runner. You're going to run the 800 and the 400. It's like, okay, I didn't know any better, and started me out running those two. I was at the back of the pack and slow. He said, don't worry. By the end, you're going to be one of the fastest 800-meter runners in the state. It's like, oh, yeah, right, coach, whatever. All right. I kept training, listened to what he said, did the hills and did the runs in the winter and ran through the summer. And after 4 years with a relay, we were the fastest 4x8 indoor relay in the state of Ohio. And we went to nationals in Washington, D.C. that year and represented Ohio in the 4x8, which was a huge honor. And again, it was the atmosphere of that team. Those 3 other guys that I went with, I still am in touch with, and they're just incredible people. And that coach is an inspiration for me even now I think back to, and I've stayed in touch with him today. So that was
Wow.
my journey. And then, I ran in college, had a great college career in Division III, really enjoyed getting to run and be part of a team, and was a team captain senior year. Just loved it. Then, I left college and things happen. Have kids, I have a job. I realize I have to cook and clean and go to the grocery store and all those things I didn't have to do in college. And I fell off running. I'd run a couple of times a week, maybe once a week, through my 20s. And then at some point in my early 30s, I said, I want to get in shape again. I'm starting to get older. Oh, I hit 30, and that kind of freaked me out. And I said, you know what? I want to run a marathon. I've always wanted to. I want to get in shape and run again. So I start running. And of course, I take all of the things I knew from college, and I think of my body as if I'm still 20. And I go out and run. And I think, okay, yeah, I'm not as fast as I was then. So instead of running at 7-minute mile pace for my easy pace, I'll run at 8-minute mile pace for my easy pace. And instead of running 8 miles for a normal easy day, I'll just do 5. So with little training and not much base, I just went out and ran, 5 miles at 8-minute pace, thinking, no problem. Soon enough, I was injured. I strained a calf muscle, got tendonitis in my hip. I started to have knee pain. All kinds of things started happening. And, I would do what most people do. I'd stop for a while, quit running, go to physical therapy, do the exercises, not run for a few weeks, and then try again. And then maybe I'd say, oh, only 4 miles this time at 8.5-minute pace. And all I would do is tweak one thing and think that would fix it all. It didn't. It would be another couple of months and I'd get hurt again, and I'd be out for a month or two doing physical therapy. And after a couple of years of this, finally it sunk in. This is not working, and this is how it's going to go for through the rest
And
of
what
my
what year
30s.
what year are we talking about timeline wise?
Yeah,
When was this?
this was like 2013, 14 that I started trying again to really run. Um, so about 2015, I had this epiphany, like, oh my God, I'm going to keep doing this until I'm 50 and I'm past the prime of my running career. And I've spent years and years just being injured or recovering from injury. So I decided to just throw everything out, toss out
Like stop?
everything, like
Like
toss out,
stop or
no, toss out what I thought I knew about running, like throw away my assumptions.
so? When you restarted, right, in
Hmm.
2013, this was like after a gap of how many years since you ran in college?
I'd probably been not training actively for 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Hmm.
And was there like a moment, something that triggered, that got you to say, hey, I need to get back to running, or it was just what triggered it?
I think it was a combination, a couple of things. It was turning 30 and seeing the numbers roll over to 30. And it was watching the Boston Marathon, because that
Okay.
was around that time was the year of the marathon bombing. And it was around the time that, I was living in Boston and started watching it in person and had seen it for a few years. I moved to Boston from Cleveland, Ohio, where I went to school and
Okay.
grew up. And being here in Boston around the culture and the excitement of the marathon was incredible. So I think it was a few of those things that came together. And, people would ask me, college friends would go like, hey, you still running? Because they knew that was a big part of who I was and my identity. And I would always kind of say, oh, no, not really. No, once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Once a runner, always a runner.
Yeah. Yep. I could not escape. I couldn't escape it, and I just wanted to go back. I missed it.
Terrific. So coming back, you started. You seem to have started with a lot of enthusiasm, having probably not realizing that there was a gap, and maybe I wouldn't say you've necessarily gotten older. 30 is not old by any by any standards anymore. 30 is the new 20 nowadays, right? You have folks who are running great sub 3 marathons at the age of 70.
Oh
So I
yeah.
wouldn't say 30 is old. I guess you were on a break and maybe out of shape, and then you came
Hmm.
back and you started running like as if there was no break, and you started realizing that your body was kind of not necessarily agreeing with you. um, so then what did you do? How did you kind of reinvent the whole yourself in that process?
Yeah. Well, I realized I had to stop thinking with reference to the past, with reference to my college self. And I had to start thinking like a 31 year old who was deconditioned, basically starting over from running, and figure out what is the body that I'm in now, and learn what's going on with my body right now. So I started going to experts and I started reading a ton. So I went to a chiropractor who works with, she's a specialist in sports chiropractic. She works with Patriots. She works with the BU rowing team. She's the real deal. And I said, I keep getting hurt. What's going on with my body? And she said, looked around and she did some checking and she said, oh, where are your glute medius? I was like, what? Where's my what? She's like, where is your glute medius? You don't have one. And at the time, I didn't know what that was. It's this vitally important stabilizing muscle on the outside of our hips, uh, next to the glute maximus, which we all know about.
Mhm.
But the glute
Mhm.
medius uh, controls the movement of your legs in a lateral direction, like to the outsides. And they're really important to stabilize our knees and our whole leg and hip structure while we run. She said, yours have atrophied to the point I can hardly feel them. And what's happening is other muscles around it are being recruited to do their job, and they're not designed to do that. So, as long as those are weak and inactive, you won't be able to run more than however much you're running now or less. And that was only 10, 15 miles a week, if that. So I figured out how to strengthen those. I started getting in the gym. She pointed out other imbalances. She said, your left leg is much weaker than your right. Who knows why? But you're going to need to focus on that left leg. So I went to work on the left leg. And then it was form. And I went and researched biomechanics and efficiency and ideal running form and started doing drills and plyometrics and practicing that. And I started over with pace. I said, okay, who cares what I used to run? I'm going to humble myself a bit and start at 10 and a half minute pace and go 2 miles. And that's going to be my easy day. And I'll do that 3 times a week. And then maybe add a mile. And then maybe down to 10, 15. So I really started from the floor and started building something. And that was about 2014, 15. And after about a year of that, I went and ran a half marathon, got hurt running it because I always want to do just over what my body's ready for. So in 2016, I ran the BAA half marathon, um, finished in, finished in a time that wasn't terrible, but blew up. My left calf nearly strained it. I had hip tendonitis. I had to take a month, 6 weeks off after that race,
Hmm.
and regrouped and did more strength training, did more of the plyometrics, got in the gym, reworked my form, started over with shoes. That was another thing. I thought I knew which shoes I liked from college,
Mhm.
but I started
Mhm.
going, okay, but I don't know anything. Why don't I try out different shoes I've never run in? So I tried out 5, 6 different pairs, different brands, and rediscovered which shoes actually work for me. So it was
The key
everything.
is that
Yeah.
the key is that you never gave up. That's the best part, right?
Mm.
You could have easily said, "Screw this, it's okay. I go play golf or something." Why
Mm.
go through this suffering? But
But
it seems like you didn't give up. So what
no.
made you not give up?
Yeah, I think you'll relate to this. Every once in a while, I would just have a really good run, you know, where I'd feel great. The weather would be perfect. I'd go out and just feel like floating and flying, and would go like, yeah, that's it. That's how I want it to feel every time. And that's how I want it to feel for 10 miles and 15 miles and 20 miles. So it would be just one of those every couple of months. That's what would keep me going.
Yeah, that's the runner's high. That we at least colloquially say, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that feeling of emotional high, or combined with physical high, and you always want to get back to that, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah. And
know,
I like
but,
going fast.
mhm.
So I want to go fast.
Hmm. Good. So you got back. You did. You got back and calibrated further on your physical fitness, but also in terms of mental fitness, right? Was there anything in that sphere that you were also kind of exploring in terms, because you're someone who
Mm.
wants to go fast, and going fast, I think, may not just be physical. There's also a mental element, right? So were you also kind of toying around with those?
I definitely had to learn to be patient and in some ways slow down and earn the speed that I really wanted. So, instead of doing, I was used to in college, again, reference to my past, we would do hard speed work twice a week. And that was just normal. And a long run every week. So 3 days a week, we were doing a hard effort and then recovering in between with a normal run, which for us was 6 to 8 miles at 7, 8 minute pace, which now would be a really hard run. So I had to just reset and go, okay, I'm starting from scratch. I have to earn and build. And it takes so much longer than I thought and then people think in general. Um, after after 4 years of training, I ran a half on my own in 2020. All the races shut down, and I went out and ran my own half marathon. And after finishing that one, I went, okay, I feel like I'm finally beginning to learn something about my body and feel good running this distance after 4 consistent years of training. I finished that half marathon about this, faster than I did in 2016 and felt so good I went and ran the next day. I felt fine. And I would have not thought it would take that long. I would have said, "Oh yeah, I could do that in a year, maybe two."
Yeah, and the fascinating part is, when you started, you thought you were old, right? Hitting 30s, you were old, and here you are. Fast forward, maybe what, 7 or 8 years down the line,
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling better. You're running faster,
Yeah.
you know. So it's kind of ironical that we commonly say that we are old, but essentially what it means is that, take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I I I don't feel any older and if anything younger than I did and have such more awareness and um I don't want to say mastery because that sounds like I've figured something out, but at least a an awareness and sense of my body and where the strengths and weaknesses are. And when I get a little tweak or a little bit of a shade of pain somewhere, I know what's going on. And I go, oh, there's that. Okay, that's that lateral. That's my knee. That's my IT band. That's my, and I can trace that up to where the source probably is, given given all these years of pinpointing. And I go, oh, okay, yeah, I need to strengthen this. I need to roll out that it's too tight. I need to hold off on speed work for a couple of weeks and focus on the basics, and then I'll come back and try again.
Terrific. That's so much gold in what you just shared, right? Because
Mm,
we talk about it, I think, what you're just sharing really points to how of it. I mean, we talk about mindful running and we talk about listen to your body, but I
mm,
think it's almost like, okay, what does that mean, right? And I think what you just shared is what it means, right?
mm,
Which is, um, just being present when you're running to all those little, uh, feelings, for a lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
in your body, and you're constantly kind of body sensing and looking at any little niggles, and you're one, getting present to it. The other
Mm-hmm.
is, then you can respond to it, versus mindless running, which is, maybe you're listening to some loud music, you don't know what's going on, you're just running like a machine.
Mm.
And what it causes is all those injuries, and I don't even know if it's good for you in the long run. So that's so much gold in what you just shared. And really, what is mindful running, what is conscious running? That's what you just described, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and there are so many things I discovered are invisible about running that I had to make visible with uh, by learning about it and practicing it. Like one is cadence, the number of steps that you take per minute,
Mm,
how quickly your stride is, how quickly your foot falls.
mm,
That was something I hadn't considered, had not ever measured, and was an invisible piece in what was probably causing some of my pain and injury, and discovered my cadence is naturally slow, and increasing it makes me much more efficient. It activates more of the muscles that need to be activated when I'm running. It reduces the pounding and the toll on my legs. Just that one thing, which was completely, I was blind to, fixing that has fixed a ton of other issues. Um, and there's others like that where just without awareness of it, we have no opportunity to change it or to figure out the source of a problem.
yeah, wonderful. Yeah, cadence is such a powerful tool, and again,
Mm-hmm.
powerful metric and but again, like you said, it's really coming back to being present, because I've practiced increasing my cadence.
Mm-hmm.
By default, my cadence tends to be in the 160 range, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to get to the 170 to 180 range. And it's a very conscious effort. It doesn't come naturally, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
about close to 6 feet as well, especially because we probably have longer legs.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get to that 170, 180 range.
Yes.
And it does take some amount of conscious practice, but
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It just makes it a lot more uh, experientially. It's so much funner to be running,
Mm.
and so much more less effort, right?
Yeah.
That's what I felt.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It feels more like I'm in control and connected to the ground, and
Hmm.
like I'm not bouncing and pounding. I'm like skipping, like
Yeah,
floating over the ground is the sense.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
it really takes a conscious effort and training to increase that cadence. And I put together like a 15-page workbook to give to people that take the running course that I created. And like that was the shortest that I could make it. Is like a step-by-step process to one, how do you find out what your cadence is? What's the ideal? Why is that ideal? And then step by step, how to train your body to find the new comfort level so that it's automatic. And it takes time. It's another like patience exercise.
What about use of power as a metric versus like heart rate, for example? And seems like it's a new thing among running.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about that. So how does running? I mean, what is power in the context of running?
Yeah. So it's an absolute measure of the amount of force that you're putting into the ground to propel you forward. So it's
Hmm.
useful in a few different ways. One, it changes when you're going up and down hills quickly. So you can look right away and say, okay, I'm on this hill. I don't know what percent grade this hill is because I don't have a, compasses with me or a way to measure
Hmm.
that. But I can look and see, okay, I'm outputting 280 watts of power as I go up this hill. And that tells me how much energy I'm expending in an absolute
Hmm.
sense. So heart rate can lag behind effort by several seconds. So you can begin running up a hill and your heart doesn't respond until you're halfway up that hill. But
Hmm.
power will respond right away. The other thing it's useful for is measuring improvements in form. So if I can run a 5K at an average of 300 watts and run it at 20 minutes and 30 seconds, and then the next time I run the same 5K on the same course and I run the same 300 watts, but my time is now 19:30, I know that I've
Hmm.
gotten more efficient. My stride has become, I've become better at propelling myself through space with less energy. So it's a way
Yep.
to measure long term. It's a way to, in the moment, to see and gauge how much energy am I expending right now. And a
Hmm.
way that I've used it is in managing a pace during a race, especially a hilly course. Like the Boston Half Marathon is quite a hilly course. It goes right through my neighborhood in Jamaica Plain, down to Brookline, back up through Jamaica Plain and into Dorchester. And
Hmm.
it's just filled with hills. And a way that power has helped me to manage that is as I'm going up a hill, I cannot overdo and waste energy. And as I'm coming down a hill, I can make sure and use the energy of that downhill to most efficiently keep moving. I think a mistake a lot of runners make, especially in a race context, is burning themselves trying to keep the same pace as they run up a hill because they think, okay, to hit my goal, I've got to run 8-minute flat pace. So as I'm going
Hmm.
up this hill, I got to keep 8 minutes flat. And they push, push, push up that hill, burning a ton of energy. And if they had an absolute measure of energy they're expending, which is wattage of power, they could look and see, oh, I'm burning. This is way above my target. I'm going to burn my legs out before I hit the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Wow, that's amazing. So how do you measure what? Is there some device that you have to buy,
Yes.
or how does it
Yeah,
work?
it's a little foot pod that goes on the
Hmm.
shoe. It weighs a few grams and it connects wirelessly with the phone or with a watch. And there's some algorithm that it's an accelerometer that's measuring how your foot is moving through space. And
Hmm.
it has a tiny wind sensor on it. So it can sense when there's a headwind that's pushing you backwards or there's a tailwind pushing you forward. That sensor can read that, do a calculation, and measure, like, okay, that headwind is costing you 20 watts
Hmm.
per second as you're running forward. And it will adjust, and you can see, like, oh, that headwind is stronger than I thought. I better pull back a little bit so I don't flame out.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
And you also talked about your coaching, right? You've pivoted into coaching, and when was that? How long did you get into? How long back did you get into coaching?
About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I
Hmm.
got really seriously into it when I took a year off of teaching, when everyone went to at home teaching and at home working and quarantined in 2020. Took that opportunity to start something I'd been thinking about for a long time, which was helping runners, especially former runners like myself, who used to be really active, had a great running career in high school or college or as young people, and then life gets in the way. People get busy, they get deconditioned, their bodies change, and then they want to run again. We want to try again
Hmm.
in our 30s, 40s, 50s, beyond.
Yeah.
And people that I have talked to around my age have found it just as hard as I have, trying to get
Hmm.
back into it, and have found all of those mental barriers of being ashamed to be seen running 10 and a half minutes a mile when they used to be quick, and
Yeah.
feeling like it's not even worth it to go out for a 2 mile run. Why would I even put my running shoes on and my clothes on for that little? It's not worth it. Really helping people adjust those perspectives and those
Hmm.
beliefs and change to, like, no, we got to start from the bottom and
Hmm.
we build, and it's going to take time, but it's worth it.
That's awesome. So, do you kind of offer that as a group program, or do you do it more of one-on-one for people?
I started one on one, And I found that it just wasn't as effective as having
Hmm.
people work together and be in a
Mm.
group. And as an educator, it's like the difference between trying to coach and help each individual student one on one rather than putting them in groups and having them collaborate and talk and solve problems and learn from each other, which is just magic. If I can have every student interacting with another student or a small group and then discussing with each other, they'll learn so much more than they will just
Yeah.
listening to me talk. So
Yeah.
I find the same is true with group programs. So I've completely switched to working with groups and having a small group. Right now, I have 5 in the program that are going through it together. And, we have a WhatsApp text group where everyone's texting what their run is that day. And we're checking on each other and seeing, hey, I'm going out. Anybody want to come with me this weekend? And encouraging each other. And that's so, so valuable. And I've designed it as a program. As a teacher, I couldn't help myself and wrote a curriculum. So it's 12 weeks long, and
Okay. Nice.
there are different topics and different challenges and different lessons every week. So people will, this week is recovery, and we're talking about sleep.
Mm.
So we're talking like, what are the basics of recovery before you go out and buy, an $800 compression sleeve for your leg? What are the things that account for most of our recovery? And that's nutrition and sleep.
Mm.
So we start with those.
So you hit a very important point, right? Nutrition and sleep. So with
Mm-hmm.
regard to sleep,
Mm.
um, are you someone who is also a proponent of measuring sleep? Like because most of us just go to sleep and wake up. We don't know whether we had good quality sleep or not. And of late, I've seen that there are ways to hack into deep sleeps, higher levels of deep sleep. So I've been using my phone to do that, for example, and I'm quite amazed with how much lack of deep sleep I actually get.
Mm.
Yeah, it's actually been fascinating. So I've been doing this for at least 2 or 3 months now, and I diligently put on my Apple Watch and go to sleep. I never used to do that before. I used to find it annoying, but now I do it. But I see the value in it.
Mm.
I'm beginning to see a pattern on two key matrices, right? One is how many minutes of deep sleep I got in the total number of hours of sleep. So we all know how many hours we slept. That's easy to calculate, right? But say 6 hours or 7 hours or 8 hours. But what I found is that the amount of deep sleep per session is not the same on all days for me. There are days that I've slept I think the longest deep sleep I've ever had is 2 hours. That's the best. And the worst is usually 15 minutes. There have been
Mm.
nights where I've just got 15 minutes of deep sleep. And from what I read about what is deep sleep, it basically is time in your sleep cycle where you're not moving at all. You're like completely semi dead, right?
Mm.
Like you're virtually semi dead, right? No movements. It's a complete deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've read is that that's when your body is recovering at its highest levels because it's
Mm-hmm.
completely shut down except for your basic body functions that are on. And so now I've been looking at what's the correlation between when is it that I'm getting deep sleep. So one other thing that I'm doing is using some hacks. Like for example, I do at some nights I listen to certain types of sleep music like brown
Mm.
noise or ocean sounds or rivers flowing or thunder and lightning. There's certain kind of sounds I put on. In about 5 to 6 minutes I'm off, and those nights I've seen my deep sleeps are better because
Mm.
I've hit the ground into sleep right away, because my brain's is just all the activities in the brain just comes down to a low from the day's activity. um, the other thing I've been looking at is heart rate, rested heart rate. There are
Mm-hmm.
nights when, my heart rate is a little higher. There are nights when it's really low. And that's another measure of, okay, how rested my body was or how rested those different things. So it's fascinating. I have no conclusions, but I'm making an observation. But I've seen that uh, the nights where I've had a combination of low heart rate and at least 1 hour of deep sleep, I'm mentally fresh the next day,
Mm.
and much more fresher. So just a way of measuring another aspect of health.
Mm.
So I find it fascinating. The other thing is, of course, people talk about supplementation for deep sleep, and by no means I'm suggesting melatonin or anything like that, because that's
Mhm.
very controversial. But there are natural herbal supplementation you can get,
Mhm.
which we can go to use place like Sprouts, and you have tons of those, and that helps because boom, it helps you get into a better circadian rhythm, because
Mm.
if you're not used to getting those deep sleeps, at least a couple of times, if you do supplementation, you don't have to do it all the time, but maybe 2 or 3 days until you get your circadian rhythm. So those
Mm.
are different things I've been playing around with.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think for people that don't sleep well, I think it's really important to do something different.
Yeah,
Because if they keep doing the
yeah,
same thing, it's going to just keep going that way. And I really agree that trying as many natural things as you can before people
yeah,
go to either a medication, pharmaceuticals, or supplements
yeah,
is the first place to start. But I have heard people that really have benefited from valerian or from other sleep
yeah,
herbs that have really helped. And yeah,
yeah. Passion flowers. I've
it's
seen
great.
passion flower listed in some of those.
Mm. Yeah, if that works for people, really encourage them to do it. It's worth investigating and finding out what works for each person, because sleep is
The other the other thing is alcohol and sleep, right?
mm,
Uh, Contrary to popular belief, when you drink alcohol, your sleep is not that deep.
right.
Your heart rate is higher in the
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
That's another thing I've seen. So, anyways, that's a topic by itself, and
Hmm.
but glad you're focused on that. And the other thing is nutrition that you mentioned. You mentioned nutrition. So is there like a particular point of view you have on nutrition?
I start again with really basics, and what I recommend, and I tell people to do and give some strategies for it, is make as much of your own food as you can.
Hmm.
If you're making your own food in your own kitchen and you are watching what goes into it and it's good, real food, then you're on your way. I
Yeah.
think, among the bodybuilding and weightlifting community, there's a lot of talk about protein and supplementation and taking 120, 150 grams of protein a day. I don't think that's as essential for runners,
Hmm.
but we need all of the macronutrients in the right balance, and we need all of the essential amino acids and all of the micronutrients to repair and recover muscle, to build mitochondria, to build our capillaries. Like, all of the things happen when our aerobic system is developing. Those,
Yeah.
you really need those consistently every day for months and months in a
Yeah.
row.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Great. So that's fantastic, Colin. So what's next on your journey?
Well, let's see. Um, I'm getting back into training now after a little time off, and looking at a half marathon in June.
Hmm.
So that's going to give me some information about where my body is at, where my training is, both my time and how I feel afterward.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
are my two big indications. If I feel like I could get up the next day and do a quick recovery run, then I'm all set. But if I need two
Yeah.
weeks off, that tells me something else. Then I'm looking at a marathon in the fall.
Hmm.
Going to um, try to hit my personal record, but really just have a stable and solid finish. Feel
Hmm.
good, be healthy. That's the first priority.
Which one have you signed up for it already?
I haven't. I'm looking at a couple around here in Boston.
Hmm.
I'm looking at the Cape Cod
Hmm.
Marathon in the fall, which is nice and flat. The Marine Corps is also nice and flat.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think there's one in Framingham.
Terrific. Hey, that was a great conversation, Colin. Took away some pretty cool ideas that you've been working on, and so definitely wish you continued success as a coach, and hope your tribe grows. And also, good luck with your continued pursuit on getting faster, fitter, and healthier on your running journey as well. Um, coming to kind of a wrap up here. I know we budgeted some amount of time. I have 5 more minutes, I think. I do a
Mhm.
fun Q&A round with my guests.
Great.
You ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. The first thing I have is, we all love to run. We are all health freaks, as everybody thinks. At least people who are not runners, who look at runners, think they're all health freaks.
Uh-huh.
But we have our weaknesses. My first one: what's your favorite junk food?
Oh, um, salt and pepper potato chips, the kind with the deep ruffles and wrinkles that are
Yeah.
real crunchy. Oh, I have to buy the small bags of those because if I buy the big one, I'll eat all of them.
Yes. Yes. That's nice. Yeah, I love chips too. I love to
Mm,
eat chips with all my meals.
yes, the salt.
All right.
Mm.
Yeah. What's your favorite running gadget?
Um, I'd say my power meter, the
Hmm.
little thing that clips on my shoe. Yep, I love it. I
That's the
use it
latest.
every run.
What's the brand?
It's called Stride, Stryd. Uh-huh.
Stride. Yeah. Although they didn't sponsor the show, but still.
No.
uh, do you listen to music while you run, or?
I often will listen to a podcast or an audiobook and
Hmm.
be listening to a story is something I really like. Occasionally music, but more
Okay.
often a book.
So a book that inspired you or inspires you.
Mm. Right now, I'm reading a book called Binti, which is
Hmm.
an African futurism science fiction book
Hmm.
that is just fascinating. It's really unique and
Wow.
interesting. So I love to get into a whole science fiction world when I'm
Hmm.
running.
Oh, nice. Well, I grew up reading Isaac Asimov. I don't know
Ah,
if you like Asimov, but yeah.
yes.
Okay, the last one I have as a question is: if you made a movie of your life,
Mm.
what genre would you place it in, and who would you hire to play your character?
Oh boy. Um, the genre, boy, it'd have to be a drama with all the ups and
Hmm.
downs and all of the all of the wildness of injury and health and just when I think it's going well. Uh,
Yeah.
um, and boy, who would play me? I don't know. Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen him around in a while though.
No, I don't know where he is. I
Right?
bet he's working on something big.
Yeah. All right, Orlando. Script on your way. You better get ready. Get fit. Yeah, start running. Terrific. Hey, you did well. Learned a few more things about you in the process. Coming to a wrap up here, I want to give you the any last final message to our audience. Great message. All right, Colin, thank you for your time today. Really enjoyed the conversation, learned a lot in the process. Wish you all the best, and let you go and enjoy the rest of the day.